Okay, Hercules, we have hit the semifinal stage of the FIFA Club World Cup going on right now in Qatar. The second semifinal slated for Wednesday. It'll feature Monterrey from Mexico, Rayados facing off against the European champions, Liverpool. Herc, I guess it's no surprise here that Rayados would be installed as a pretty heavy underdog as we look at the match odds. Liverpool going off as 1-5 favorites. Monterrey 12-1. So here's my question to you. This is Rayados, one of the supposed new grandes of Mexican football, and here they are installed as almost pathetic 12-1 underdogs. Herc, is that fair?
How could it not be fair? What have Mexican clubs done at the Club World Cup or at world's football at that level, club level, to dictate that kind of respect where they wouldn't be? Listen, this is Liverpool. This is one of the best teams in the world, if not the best team today in the world, with all that offensive firepower, great coaching, the way they play against a Rayados team that, let's be honest, struggled mightily in their last game against Al-Sadd.
So 12-1 odds. You don't even give Rayados a little bit of that fighter's chance? I mean, this is a team that has spent a lot of money on its roster, Hercules. I think we have to say that. This is not some team that is going to be able to cry poor against anybody, even Liverpool.
You're confusing what fighter's chance means. Fighter's chance means one punch, you're out, it's over. That doesn't happen in world football. It doesn't happen in football. You don't score once and the game's over. They
You've
can
never seen a
score. I
1-0
actually have this game going 4-1.
What are you talking about?
Not the way Rayados plays. Not the way Rayados plays. And that's why I think it's going to get ugly versus Liverpool. I think Liverpool is going to win by a multiple of 3 or more goals. They're that type of team, the way they play, that heavy metal system of Jurgen Klopp. And it's also what Turco Mohamed and his team doesn't do very well, which is that balance. They don't defend very well. They go all out. They only have one way to play. It's very direct. They're very not balanced in that midfield. Though I do like their 2 defensive midfielders, it's not a game that suits them. So when they don't play that way, when they try to sit in, they invite pressure. It doesn't go well, as we saw against Al-Sadd, or as on this side they were saying, todos tristes.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you this. Do you respect the great Xavi Hernandez?
As a player, yes, I do.
Okay. Okay, we're going to see. This is what Xavi Hernandez had to say about Rayados. Now, he was talking about the Rayados-Liverpool match coming up. Of course, Hernandez in charge of Al-Sadd, the team that Rayados beat in the quarterfinal round. Creo que Monterrey puede competir con Liverpool. I think Rayados can compete with Liverpool. Yo creo que no hay tanta diferencia. I don't think there's that much of a difference. So, Hercules, does Xavi not know what he's talking about?
Like I said, Xavi as a player I respect. As a coach, we have yet to see what he's all about. Now, this is just him trying to be respectful of both clubs, him trying to be respectful of what soccer is down here. And if you look at the context of that conversation, they were talking about world football to the world's elite. So they brought in South American football. You're talking the Bocas, the Rivers. They brought in South American national teams to the best national teams in Europe. That's where this comes from. That's where the context or the root of this quote comes from. Let's not dissect it to where it fits your needs. Yes, he is speaking well of Monterrey, but this is the same Monterrey team that if they were better in front of goal, if Al-Sadd was better in front of goal, they'd be playing against Liverpool. That's how bad Monterrey was.
Herc, we got a lot of folks who are Liverpool fans watching us. Let's give them a little bit of a scouting report, so to say, on this Rayados team. You've put together the starting 11 that you think Turco Mohamed will use against Liverpool. Walk us through this team. There are, we should note, some critical absences. Aviles Hurtado out injured. Vincent Janssen as well, the ex-Spurs striker, is out for the FIFA Club World Cup. So those 2 limitations are placed on Turco Mohamed's squad. But Herc, walk us through this 11 and where its strengths are, you think, against Liverpool.
It's pretty much the same 11. It's exactly the same 11 that played against Xavi Hernandez, Al-Sadd. Vagignoni, who scored that unbelievable golazo from the left-hand side as a left back. Gallardo in front of him, which has been a very important player for them this time in playoffs. Back line's the same. Medina on the right, Monte Sanchez, Gonzalez, Jonathan Gonzalez, which many American fans will recognize, and Charlie Rodriguez, who's been the revelation, in Mexican soccer the past year. Holding that midfield down, that duo right there, Gallardo, Pizarro, Pavon, Funes Mori, Pizarro's an important figure for this team, Monterrey. He's the guy who handles the rock. He's the guy who makes them tick. He really connects what is the midfield to that final third. Funes Mori is one of the historic goal scorers of this team, but if you're asking right now who I'd rather have Vincent Janssen. He's been that important for them in this playoff round. He's big, he's strong, he knows how to combine and bring players in, and he's finishing off goals. Every game he's played in La Liga, or La Liguilla I should say, in Mexican playoffs, he's scored. He's been an important element, and they're certainly going to miss him.
I think when we talk about Rayados in the context of Liga MX, we don't really dive into their weaknesses so much, but they do have some, and Liverpool's a team that surely can exploit it. So for you, when you look at this Rayados team, where is it at its weakest, its most vulnerable against Liverpool?
When they're at their best, and I know that sounds silly, but when they're at their best and they're very vertical, they go with speed, they leave themselves exposed a lot because Vagnoni's flying up, because Medina's flying up, because either Charlie Rodriguez or Jonathan Gonzalez is supporting in that role, leaving one of them to hold what is a very weak and shaky back line. Now, Mexican soccer is not the most physical type of game. That's why Vincent Janssen, come playoff time, he's really coming to his own. He's been so physical with the Mexican defenders, they're not used to it. This physical play, this in-your-face, this biting at the opponent, this up-and-down style. Monterrey can play it offensively. Defensively, that's where they get hurt, and that's where Liverpool can hurt them. This heavy metal type of play. It's Liverpool versus Monterrey. You go, I go, you go, I go. Liverpool's going to be a lot better at it than Monterrey. Monterrey, as soon as they're down a goal, this is where I worry for them. If they can score first, the key's in scoring first. If they don't, if they have to chase the game, they only open themselves up and invite more and more pressure, as Al Sadd showed us they can do. And if Al Sadd was better in front of goal, this would have been a 4-2 affair instead of how it ended up.
Okay, it's prediction time. Now, we should note, we've talked about Rayados injuries. Virgil van Dijk did not train on Monday. He could still play come Wednesday, but Fabinho, a really critical player for Liverpool, is out. Those injuries, do they give you any hope, Herculez? I know earlier in the segment, I don't think I heard you very optimistic about Rayados.
It doesn't. Styles make matchups in any sport, and this style, Monterrey style for Liverpool, I just think Liverpool's going to eat them up. The more and more they try to advance, the more pressure Liverpool put on them, the more they will expose their weaknesses in the back line, the spaces they can afford Liverpool. I've got Liverpool winning by 3 goals. I'm hoping it stays, and listen to what I'm going to say, somewhat respectable at 4-1. That's my prediction, but this could get ugly.
Wow. Okay, well then I'll dress myself in the flag then. I think Rayados wins in penalties. In penalties. Let's see if all that money that Rayados has spent to become one of Los Grandes finally pays off. I think they're going to win in penalties. That's my prediction. But let's pull this back.
I will tell you this, Sebi.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No.
I was going to tell you, there are a lot of teams that would love to be in this position. But in my eyes, Rayados is the most deserving to be in this position against Liverpool today.
Okay, let's talk about the history of Mexican soccer, at least the last decade, and where Rayados fits in. Because Rayados has been one of the better teams in Mexico over the last 10 years. And as you look at these numbers, amount of finals, amount of titles, we should always remind you, there's double everything in Mexico, double the leagues to be won, double the cups to be won. But there we see basically Los Cuatro Grandes of the last decade. Tigres, 7 finals, 5 league titles. Club America, 6 finals, about to be a 7th, 3 league titles. Santos in there with 3 league titles as well. Rayados, 5 finals, but just the 1 league title, and that coming way back in 2010. Herc, it's been a while since Rayados was at the top of the pile of Mexican soccer. Are they the best representative of Liga MX for the FIFA Club World Cup?
Yeah, because it's not about history. Now, you're going back to that game that I think they beat Cruz Azul in that final, that famous Aldo de Nigris final, where he pays respects to his brother who had recently passed away. Monterrey is a team that does well at an international level. I mean, they've won CONCACAF Champions League, I believe, 3 or 4 times this decade. I've lost 2 of them myself to this team. It pains me to admit it. You look at what Santos has done. You look at what America has done, what Tigres. all very good teams this decade. But if you're looking at the actual moment, no team has played better football in La Liguilla, in Mexican playoffs, than Rayados. You look at America, who are they going to play in the final? America was down the first half of the first leg versus Tigres.
Where are the trophies for Rayados, Herculez? Where are the trophies? Where are the trophies for Rayados if there's
Is that what it's about? Is it about history? You want Chivas and America to be the only teams that go to the Club World Cup?
Where are the trophies? They won a cup in 2017. They haven't won anything since 2013. CCL and a cup. That's it.
What's your question? What's your question?
Where are the trophies for Rayados?
What's your question?
Who's the true representative?
What does that have to do with the best representation today of playing in the Club World Cup? They don't have the trophies, but what does that have to do with anything?
Who's the best representative of Mexican soccer at this moment?
Rayados, because they give you the best chance of winning, because they're playing the best brand of football.
Club America.
Of course. You know what your problem is, Sebi? You know what your problem is, Sebi?
What is my problem?
You think with your heart. You think with the flag. You think with the jersey.
I think with the numbers.
And you're an Americanista, so any answer besides America is a wrong answer.
13, Herculez. 13 titles.
So what we're doing right now is we're going to say America does everything because they've won the most titles. It doesn't matter what kind of form they have right now.
Or maybe it's because they're the best exporter of talent. Maybe it's because they're the best exporter. Choose.
Is that what you're saying?
What do you want?
America's
the best at everything. America's the best at everything.
You want Pio Herrera getting red carded now at the world stage now. That's what you want. Club World Cup, get him out of here. Red card. That's what you want.
Please. What about the exportation?
You're asking one thing, and then you're expecting me to answer another. If you're asking who's the best, most informed club right now, it's Rayados. If you're asking who's the team with the most history, it's gonna be Club America. But that's
how
not
can
what
you
were
say
asking,
Rayados
Seba.
is the most informed when they finished 8th in the Mexican League this past season? 8th.
They fired their coach. Turco Mohamed comes. They're playing a different brand. They're undefeated under Turco Mohamed. They've played the best brand of football in all playoffs, in all Liguilla. And you're gonna sit here and tell me they're not the best representation of what is Mexican soccer today? You'd rather have an inconsistent, out-of-form team like Club America because they've got more titles represent Mexican soccer, even though they didn't win or they didn't do it by a sporting way?
Show the graphic again. Show the graphic again. Show a Club America so Herc doesn't pretend like it was all in the 70s and in the 80s. Show the graphic again.
Show the graphic again. Because if we're going to go by this graphic, it should be Club Tigres, not America. What are you talking about? It should be Tigres then.
No, please. Where's Tigres? Where's the export?
Crickets? Are we not?
Where's the export? Come on.
Are we not talking about?
America has a coach that managed Mexico in a World Cup. They're the face of Mexican soccer. Please show
Ricardo
respect.
Ferretti is the Sir Alex Ferguson of Mexican soccer.
They're the most discussed team in
product
Mexico.
to come the last decade to Mexican soccer. He's the actual best player in Mexican soccer. They've got the best goalie in Mexican soccer. They've got one of the best defensive midfielders in Mexican soccer. Are you seriously going to sit here and tell me that you would pick America over Tigres? Because if you're not going to go by sporting merits, if you're not going to go by who's actually playing well, who's actually playing the best at this moment, you're just going to pick out of a hat, you really wouldn't pick Tigres.
I'm going to pick out of a hat, he says. 13 titles. Herculez, have you ever received a paycheck from Tigres?
I'm using your graphic. I don't understand you. What do you want?
I rest my case. Let me make one more point here, Herculez, about the FIFA Club World Cup. Not about America. Let's get back to Rayados versus Liverpool, because I wonder if this could play a factor on Wednesday. Our colleague and good friend on ESPN FC, Stevie Nicol, was telling me a story a couple weeks ago. He played in the, I think, Intercontinental Cup in 1984 for Liverpool after they'd won the European Championship. They played Independiente from Argentina. And he was telling me how after the match he was taken aback, because the Independiente players, once they'd won, were celebrating as though they had won a World Cup final. And the Liverpool players were thinking, this is like a preseason friendly, no? Do you think that could play any factor into Wednesday's game? That this would mean much more to Rayados than it would to a Liverpool team that is chasing its own history in its league right now?
That's a good point, Seb. And I would say yes if it wasn't for the fact that they've got to play the Mexican League final on the 26th and the return leg on the 29th. That's the only thing in the back of my head that's saying maybe just as much as you think Liverpool are going to hold back, if Rayados sees that they're down, the chips are down, maybe they're holding back just a little as well, because they know on the other side of that transatlantic flight, on the other side of that, global flight, they've got Club America waiting for them the day after Christmas.
Rayados and Liverpool, Wednesday in the FIFA Club World Cup semifinal. The winner gets a spot in Saturday's final in the Qatari capital of Doha.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.